Hey everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Turning Readers into Writers with me, your host, Emma Dhesi. It is a joy to have you here with me. Thank you for joining me. Today I'm going to be talking about a topic that's been around in the media for quite a while. Well, over the last few weeks, it's really sort of taken off with the introduction of ChatGPT. And I want to give a shout out to Sarah Lindgren, who emailed me and said, hey, would you do an episode about AI and how that might impact authors going forward and what my thoughts are on it. So big thank you to Sarah. What a great suggestion. And I thought, yeah, I'll give you my tuppence on it and you can let me know what you think. So I'm maybe a bit optimistic, maybe a bit naive, I don't know, but I just don't think that AI books is going to be it's not going to be doomsday for authors. I don't think it's going to be this awful end of creativity as some people are saying. I think it will probably shift the landscape yet again in publishing, which is both exciting and a bit scary as well. But when you think back to, what was it, 2008, 2009, when Kindle came out, everybody thought, oh my goodness, that's going to... Well, first of all, they said it would never take off. That proved to be wrong. And then people were very, very worried that it would put traditional booksellers and traditional paperback books, just make them... put them out of business and make them defunct and no longer necessary. But as we've discovered, that's not been true at all. There's space and there's room for everything. Like any change, it's brought with it a period of disruption. And I think we're still in that period, actually. I do think we're still in that. So the advent of online booksellers and ebooks has certainly shifted things, and the publishing space as a whole is still trying to rebalance. It's still trying to find its feet again. So while traditional houses are struggling, are finding it tough, they're still hanging on in there. They're not disappearing. Because they're so big, they're finding it harder to shift and change with the marketplace. So they're always a step behind. Makes me think of the big bureaucratic civil service bodies here in the UK that are so big. They find it hard to shift and change and move with the times and quickly. So that's been the experience for traditional publishing houses, but they are changing and they are adapting, and they do still have a role to play. And whilst we've seen a temporary decline in bookstores, and some big chains certainly have gone out of business, others are still there. Others are still hanging on. We've still got Waterstones here in the UK. Barnes and Noble is still going strong. So it's not that it's the end of a traditional bookshop where you get to go in and you have that lovely browsing experience, and you have I was in a bookshop at the weekend, and just that lovely feeling of being in a shop with other book lovers, and the colours that are there and the feel of it, and being able to explore at leisure what books are available, the lovely beautiful hardbacks that come out, the new editions of old classics. It's a real sensory experience, and I think as shoppers we still enjoy that. Yes, for sort of day-to-day, perhaps quick purchases, we might be happy to do that online, and things like grocery shopping, we're happy to do that online because it's just one of those things that's got to be done. It's a task to tick off. But when it comes to the sort of more experiential pleasure of going shopping, whether that be for clothes, makeup, going to a salon, buying books, that's still there. We still want that. We still want that tactile experience. And so even though the trends of purchasing books has shifted, the bookshops are still there. We still need them. We still want them. Libraries are still hanging on in there, even though everybody thought they would go bust. They are still there. And I think that AI books coming into the market is just another shift and change that will have to be made. And there will be a period where I'm sure, like there was for Kindle, there'll be the golden era. So for those that are jumping onto the Chat GPT or the AI book bandwagon now, and they're experimenting and they're willing to kind of put themselves out there as this new type of writer, or new type of creator, I should say, then I'm sure there will be a gold rush there, and that there will be some people who make a lot of money from it in the short term, because readers are going to be interested and they're going to want to see what's the difference. I'm sure even as writers, you and I will be purchasing one or two to see, okay, what's the fuss about? Can I tell the difference? If I was being really honest, can I tell the difference between a book that's written by a human and a book that's written by a computer? It's going to be intriguing, isn't it? It's going to be interesting. But then I think that will balance out again, and we'll see a way for everybody to adapt. And I wouldn't be surprised that if there does become a legal requirement to to state whether this is an AI generated book or not, so that people have that choice. And the reason I can see that coming into play is because this will make you laugh. So Britain used to be part of the European Union, and as part of that we were subject to many, many laws and guidelines set by Europe. And one of the stories that exemplifies sometimes how silly this is was in Wales. So Wales is a region of the UK. It's its own country, but it's one of the 4 nations within the United Kingdom, and its kind of animal on its flag, its national animal, if you like, is a dragon. Just like in Scotland, our national animal is a unicorn. You know, go figure. So we know that dragons do not exist. We know that they are figments of imagination. They've never existed, and they're made up. But they're a part of Welsh national culture. And there was a company who made sausages, and they were Welsh dragon sausages, and this was on their branding. You know, that's what they were called, and there was a picture of a dragon on the sausage packet. But under EU law, they had to state on the packaging that there were no dragons in the sausages. You know, there was no dragon meat in the sausages. So even though dragons don't exist, and everybody knows this was still something that had to be stated on the packet. And the ridiculousness of that still makes me laugh to this day. But it makes me think that if there will be a rule and a regulation around stating that a non-existent animal is not in a sausage, then there will be a rule or a regulation around stating whether a book is created by a human or created by AI, so that the reader gets the choice and understands what they're buying and doesn't feel duped, I suppose. Nobody likes to feel that they've been made a fool of, or they've been tricked into something. They want to know what they're buying. So that's why I can see that there would be a labelling guideline or guidance or rule around that, and that will help us in the long term. But I just don't think that it's really going to stop us as creators, stop us as novelists from writing our books, because we don't just write our books because we want to make money. The main driver we have behind writing that first novel is we're called to. It's a compulsion within us. This is something that we love, something that we're driven to. In the same way that some people need to go for a run to manage their stress levels and manage their hormones, we creatives, we need to create in order to balance out our brain. You know, it's a way of relaxation. It's a way of figuring out the world and what we think of the world. It's a way of processing the things that we experience in life. It's a way of keeping our head straight, if I'm honest. And so for us, that call, that drive to create will not go away. We may find new ways of doing it, and maybe some of us choose to do it through AI, but I still think the majority of us who go in for it because we love to create will continue to write the way that we do now. And the way that we do now is varied, isn't it? I have always written my first drafts by hand. Some of you will be the same, but others will write straight to the computer. Some of you I know dictate the way your stories, either through choice or because physically it's actually just become too hard to sit and write at a desk. So there's all different ways that we create now, and I can see that ChatGPT or AI will also just be another way that we incorporate our creativity into novel writing and storytelling. So I don't think that that will change. Where I do see that AI could be really beneficial is for blog posts. We see those already. And you can tell, can't you? When you read a blog post, you know that, oh, okay, that's been done through a machine, because it's really, the language is very standard. It's very, there's no nuance to it. There's no personal anecdote to it. There's no voice to it. And you can tell, oh, okay, this has been created not by a human, but by a computer. And if you haven't noticed this, because it took me a while to notice it, I just remember thinking, oh, this article's really simple, similar to another article I've read. That's really odd. It must be the same author. But it wasn't until somebody told me, no, that's computer generated, and that's why they all sound the same. If you Google a topic and you read through a few different blog posts on that topic, you'll see that the ones at the top, they've got all the right keywords, so they go right to the top, and then they end up sounding the same. It's because they've been computer generated. And so there's a real risk there that any novels that are written by AI will also sound the same. They'll also be pretty generic. Certainly to begin with. I imagine that as technology advances, so will the idea of having the voice of the AI computer. So blog posts is one place that I think AI can come into its own. And the other place I could see that it being useful and coming into its own is for a very kind of standard non-fiction book. So if it's a how-to book, learning how to do something, then I could see that AI could play quite a good role there, because you're not looking to, it's not a memoir. You're not looking for anecdotes. You're not looking for someone's personal experience in something. You're just looking to understand how to do something. It could be, how to knit, or it could be how to use a piece of software, something like that. Something that's very factual, that is just a set of instructions. I could see that AI would have a really suitable role there. And there would be no harm in that. And somebody who does have a skill but doesn't know how to write, or isn't interested in writing but knows that having a book would be a really useful part of their business, AI can be a super tool for them to create this book and get another way for them to get their message out into the world. So that's two places that I can see that AI would be useful. But kind of stepping back into the idea of being an author who creates. So we do it because we love it, because it provides something for us, helps keep our sanity. For me, it's a form of meditation as well. So I really need that. But could you imagine if you were writing your novel using AI, and what a boring job that would be? For someone who needs that creative outlet, how boring to ask a computer to write a paragraph for you, or ask what would this character say. You're not going to get the joy from that. You're not going to get that meditative feel from that. You're not going to get that cathartic outlet by using a computer. So who is going to want to do that? I think that after a while, the novelty will wear off, and people will either give it up or probably discover that they actually want to use their own voice and use their own talents and their own skills and evolve into being a traditional writer, someone who does it themselves. So I can see that the excitement and the novelty will wear off a few years afterwards, just like with Kindle. The early authors were throwing anything up onto Kindle and it was selling. Didn't matter how bad the book cover was. It didn't matter how bad the story was. They were throwing something up there and people were buying it because it was exciting and new. And over time, those early adopters either kind of faded away because they found that they didn't enjoy it as much as they thought they would, or it's opened up new opportunities for them and their career has taken a different path. But equally, there are those writers who, threw stuff up in the early days, but then discovered that they wanted to start taking some pride in their work. And so they wanted to improve the writing craft that they had. They wanted to do better than they were. And so then they started writing better stories, and they started taking more pride in the book covers, the blurbs, the way they interacted with their audience, all of these things. So they up-leveled as well. And so by a process of kind of eliminating those who weren't really interested in it, it's left those people who genuinely were interested in it and did want to continue with their novel writing and continue in the author space, and so bring out the best in people as well. And I can imagine AI doing something similar when the novelty of sitting in front of a computer and asking the computer to write the book wears off. Somebody who is genuinely interested in writing a book will kind of rise to the top and will start probably to do it themselves. So I can see that working. I've had a look. Reuters had an article which I will link to about and highlighted a few people who have already put some AI books out into the world. Some of them were children's picture books, but then there was another one that was an adult book. And it was basically erotic, it's erotica that they've put out. And I can see too as well that this could be a niche genre for some AI books as well, where, erotica, I'm not a reader of erotica myself, but I imagine that the purpose behind it is not about great storytelling. The purpose behind it is not to kind of see the world in a different way, have this emotional experience behind it, but rather there's a much more kind of physical reason for having that book. And people who read erotica are going there for a different kind of experience, and that perhaps doesn't need to be written by a human. It just needs to hit a certain number of tropes, and it just needs to hit certain plot points, shall we say, and then that is enough. So I could see too that a very kind of niche area like that would be useful as well, and that might kind of boost that niche and that area and that genre. But I think for the rest of us who really are looking to explore the world through our fiction, who really genuinely want to share something with our readers that's of value and can help them navigate the world, help our readers navigate the world, this will not be something that we need to worry about. The final thing I would say as a word of caution is, don't believe the hype. Media, I hate the media, I have to be honest. I really resent how lazy they are and how they misrepresent things. Mainstream media just is looking for clickbait. They just want people to buy their papers. They want people to click on the headline. And so doom and gloom, for whatever reason, I don't know why humans, we are drawn to doom and gloom stories. It's almost like we want to know that the end of the world is coming. I don't know why. I mean, I'm no different. We're all the same, I think, in this way. If we see something macabre, we want to know about it. So if there is headlines saying ChatGPT, it's the end of creativity, AI will bring about the end of books as we know it, and there'll be no role for authors, that's media hype. They're not deliberately trying to scare us, but they're deliberately trying to get us to click on that article or buy that paper. And so just be aware of that and take whatever they say with a pinch of salt. If you're old enough to remember back to the year Y2K, and oh my goodness, the press went to town on how everything was just going to dissolve, all the computers were going to crash, the world was going to come to an end, and then we all woke up on the next day and it's fine, nothing's happened, we're all still here and our computers still work, and on we go. So I think it's going to be similar to that. Y2K, Kindle books, and now AI. It's just another way for the mass media to sell us something that isn't true. So do just take that with a pinch of salt. It's great to be aware of it, but don't let it put you off. Don't let it stop you from being the creative that you are. Don't let it stop you from pursuing a dream that you have. There are always going to be readers. There's over 8 billion people on this planet now. You just need a handful of those people to read your books, and then you are changing the world little by little. So there's enough room for all of us. And I envisage that just like we read a mix of paperback and Kindle, we'll end up reading a mix of, and Audible, I should say. We now read a mix of paperback, Kindle, or ebook, I should say, paperback, ebook, and audiobooks. We consume our fiction in so many ways, and I imagine that we will continue to consume fiction written by humans, and into the mix, I'm sure, will be fiction written by AI as well. So it's really interesting, this new phase that we're coming into. Do let me know, what do you think? Do you think this is the end of the world as we know it, or do you think this is just another adaptation in the publishing world that we will adapt to and get used to? That yes, there will be some change, and there'll be some winners and there'll be some losers, as there is with every change, but the industry as a whole, publishing as a whole, storytelling as a whole will continue, because we need it. As humans, we need that. What do you think? Let me know. You might have a more nuanced or a more interesting take on this. I would love to hear from you. Please do let me know below. All right, thanks very much for joining me today, and I will see you next time.